From celebration to catastrophe. RCB win marred by deadly stampede. Political blame game erupts over deaths. Who's accountable for the tragedy? Bengaluru Stampede horror. Top focus on NewsTrack.
Good evening. You're watching NewsTrack here on India Today. I'm Akshita Nandagopal and we've been getting you all the non-stop updates coming in from Bengaluru. Over the next 1 hour, we'll be getting you the details of what really transpired, how the stampede broke out. 11 people have lost their lives. And if you've had any doubt in your minds about the felicitation ceremony taking place, the timing of it and how it happened post the stampede, we'll break down the exact sequence for you and prove how there was 100% negligence, 100% mismanagement and also absolute insensitivity shown by the authorities. We'll be getting you all the latest updates coming in on the inquiry into the stampede and much more. It was meant to be a day of celebration in the city of Bengaluru. Lakhs came together to celebrate the RCB victory last night in that thrilling IPL final. A day of joy, a day of celebration and a day of happiness quickly turned around into an absolute nightmare and a tragedy after a stampede broke out during the victory parade in Bengaluru. Horror images that have come in of that stampede. Let's run you through those first. This particular video is just moments, in fact, before the tragedy unfolded. The concrete slab placed over an open drain reportedly gave way under the weight of the crowd, and that sudden collapse triggered panic, leading to a stampede. With lakhs of fans thronging the streets to join the celebrations, a police force of just 5,000 proved grossly inadequate. Unable to manage the surging crowd, authorities struggled to maintain order. The situation outside Chinnaswamy Stadium grew so dire, the police were forced to resort to a lathi charge in a desperate attempt to disperse the crowd. But even that failed to bring the chaos under control. Several people collapsed, unable to breathe because of the stampede. The sheer crowd pressure combined with inadequate medical support on ground turned an already dangerous situation into a dire crisis. And these images show you how locals started helping each other out. And this was right after the stampede where people were struggling to breathe. This is the aftermath of the stampede. And it gives you a sense of really what played out outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium. All that remains now is massive piles of scattered slippers, silent witnesses to the tragedy that unfolded. And let's get you the first official statement that's come in from RCB, the Royal Challengers Bangalore. They've put out a statement. I'm going to read it out for you. We're deeply anguished by the unfortunate incidents that have come to light regarding public gatherings all over Bengaluru. The safety and well-being of everyone is of utmost importance to us. RCB mourns the tragic loss of lives and extend our heartfelt condolences to the affected families. Immediately upon being made aware of the situation, we promptly amended our program, followed the guidance and advice of the local administration. This is the statement put out by the RCB. And I'll just remind all of our viewers that the event that took place at the Chinnaswamy Stadium, meters away from where the stampede broke out, meters away from where 11 people lost their lives, was an event that was organized by the RCB. And there was no attempt to stop that particular event. So as much as the RCB says that as soon as we got to know, we immediately ensured all necessary steps, we promptly amended our program, doesn't really seem to be the case. We had celebrations, loud music playing out, just moments after the stampede had taken place. And whose event was that at the Chinnaswamy Stadium? It was an event being held by the RCB. So while hours later you see this kind of a statement, the usual messaging about condolences and also about being ensuring that they fully understand what's happening right now, urging supporters to stay safe. At the end of the day, when it mattered most, they didn't cancel their celebration, they didn't cancel their event. I want to bring in Sagai Raj for more details on this. Sagai, the usual tokenism, tick in the box statements coming out, nothing beyond that. The reality is that RCB refused to pull the plug on that massive event at the Chinnaswamy Stadium. You saw it. You saw the stampede break out. Hours later, the event going on like nothing happened.
Absolutely. Everybody were participating in the event as if nothing has happened outside the stadium and everything was normal. And it's just a celebration which was being organized by RCB. And just now we spoke to opposition party leader R.S. He has categorically mentioned that he has taken down the timing of the death of all those people who have died in the stampede. And he has the timing. He says that the government was aware. They have been informed by the police through walkie-talkie that these many people were reported dead. Probably around, around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, they would report around 3 people. Around 5:30 when the bus reached Chinnaswamy Stadium, there were reports that there were 7 people who were killed in stampede. So the government was aware, the RCB management was aware, and even D.K. Shivkumar has also categorically mentioned that in Vidhan Sabha they had spoken about this particular death and has also instructed Virat Kohli and Rajat Patidar to cut short the celebration. And they proudly claim that they have cut short the celebration within 10-15 minutes. But why you need to celebrate when there are 11 people who came to cheer for you, who came to celebrate along with you, have lost your life? It's just like your family member. When you claim that your fans or your family, your 12th army, why not you can postpone the celebration, or why you cannot abandon the celebration? Now you give a statement stating that you're disappointed with this. I'm a RCB fan. I am not happy with the statement that they have given. They should have rather cancelled it, and they should have said that these many people have died. They are our family members. Then we want to cancel. Remember, if the same family members would have died in any of the RCB management or even in the team players, would have gone ahead and celebrated? No. It's the same thing. If you consider fans as your family, you should always treat them like a family, not just use them only for the matches and just ignore them when these kind of incident happens.
Very, very well said. Very well put, Sagai. Truly, if you really cared for the fans beyond the empty words of we are a family, we are an army and whatnot, they would have taken that step. It was the least thing they could have done, essentially. Call off the event. It reeks of insensitivity when they went ahead with this kind of a celebratory massive bash just moments after deaths had occurred outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium. But I just want to break down for you the sequence of events. Did these ceremonies, bashes happen after the stampede? Let's answer those for you. 2:10 is when the gates opened at the stadium, leading to all-out chaos because people thought it was first come, first serve. They started rushing towards the gate. At 3:55 p.m. is when the stampede actually broke out. And this was because there were pockets where there were so many people who had gathered. They were pushing through the gates, trying to push past barricades as well. So the crowd tries to enter into the stadium, stampede breaks out. It's at this point that a drain slab collapses, leading to deaths. In that area, there were so many people jam-packed that the slab just completely gave way and people fell inside. Then to pull them out, considering the crowds, was virtually impossible, and heartbreaking images of people essentially being trampled upon. At 4 p.m., the cops resorted to a lathi charge barely 5 minutes later to clear the entire area. And let's be very clear, you cannot blame the Karnataka police here. Lakhs of people there, it is difficult for them to do their job, especially after they were up all night performing and their duty and ensuring that there's no chaos that breaks out in the night. Now, let me remind you, 3:55 is when the stampede happens. At 4:50 p.m., the RCB team reaches Vidhan Sabha. And then at 5 p.m., a good 1 hour after the stampede, the Karnataka government goes ahead with the felicitation ceremony at Vidhan Sabha. You'd think that the government would cancel that event. So let me again highlight for you, there was a 1 hour gap. Not enough time for the government to cancel the event knowing a stampede has happened, or for that matter to even look at the scenes outside the Vidhan Sabha where you had lakhs and scores of people coming together, almost waiting for some sort of disaster to unfold. The government's reasoning is we shorten the duration of the event, and according to them, that's enough. There are a couple of questions that need to be answered tonight by the administration. Let's put those out for you. First, why wasn't enough police deployed? 5,000 police personnel versus lakhs of people on the ground. How could the police cope? It's unfair to expect that the cops would be able to do anything. Were crowd control measures not in place? We have the answer to that. It's a clear no. And the reason for that is because there was very, very little time that was actually given to the police to prepare for this felicitation ceremony. Ideally, they should have been pushed by 24 hours to ensure adequate preparations on ground. Anyone who's seen how the RCB fans behave, react, know that they have literally an army in Bengaluru that would come out on the streets. Why did the celebrations continue even after the Stampede? The Stampede, as I told you, happened at about 3:55. 5 p.m. at Vidhan Sauda, there's a government felicitation ceremony. 6 p.m. Chinnaswamy Stadium, massive bash. Everything continuing as scheduled. Go on with the show. The show must go on mentality. Did cops swing into action too late? Could they have done more outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium, particularly in kind of communicating to the crowd that you need tickets to enter the stadium? There's no first come, first serve. Should the gates have remained closed? Did the state government not estimate crowds after last night? So many videos on social media. Even if you don't live in Bengaluru, I'm sure you've seen the craze over the RCB win. It was like Diwali last night in Bengaluru. So how is it that the government didn't anticipate it? Their intel has failed. They had no intel. And secondly, the most basic math of seeing the kind of craze that happened last night, they didn't look into that either. These are questions the administration must respond. But let me get you a detailed report now on what happened. How did this fan frenzy turn so fatal in Bengaluru?
Namma Bengaluru was painted red. It was celebrating the Red Army's victory. A moment that they had been waiting for 18 long years. It was no less than a dream. And to celebrate this victory, thousands gathered at the Chinnaswamy Stadium. The Bengaluru administration and the Siddaramaiah government were not prepared for the large crowds. Soon, trouble started. There was chaos at multiple entry points, forcing the police to resort to lathi charge. A slab on a drain cracked open, leading to further panic. People were seen crying for help, collapsing on the ground. The injured were rushed to the nearby hospitals. And then, death toll began to trickle in.
महेश, आप कह सकते हैं क्या हुआ था यहाँ पे?
सर यहाँ पे बहुत क्राउड था, ठीक है। हम लोग क्राउड के वजह से वो बैरिकेड था, बैरिकेड गिर गया। बैरिकेड के अंदर से बहुत सारे लोग गिर गया।
पुलिस कुछ नहीं किया था उसके टाइम पे?
उस वक्त में करीब 3 पुलिस पीसी था। उन लोग कोशिश किया कि वो क्राउड कंट्रोल करने के लिए, लेकिन क्राउड बहुत ज़्यादा था, वो कर नहीं पाया। हम लोग उसको बोले कि एक्स्ट्रा पोस्ट लेने के लिए वो नहीं ले पाया।
We can see that these were the barricades which fell on few people. According to Mahesh, he said that these kind of barricades fell on all those fans who were here, and couple of them even suffered grievous injuries.
But what's more bizarre is that as the system collapsed outside, felicitation continued inside the stadium. As the fan frolic turned fatal, the BJP trained its guns at the Congress government, calling it a photo op Sarkara. The lives in the Stampede were not lost by chance, but by sheer negligence, charged the BJP.
Without any proper preparedness, state government's urgency to organize victory rally is the cause for this big tragedy. And state government never bothered about preparedness.
The under-fire Siddaramaiah government shifted the blame on the crowd.
So Stampede has taken place. Nobody has expected so much of crowd will come because The capacity of the stadium is only 35,000 people. Only 35,000 seats are there.
It also claimed the felicitation at the Chinnaswamy Stadium lasted just 10 to 15 minutes.
Just now from the Vidhan Soda, I had to bring the secretary and the president in my vehicle. The crowd was so much. We had arranged more than 5,000. It is a young, vibrant crowd. This is we can't use our lathi.
Here are some big questions. Why was the administration unprepared? Why didn't the government cancel the event when the tragedy unfolded? Why isn't the government bothered with common man's lives? Is photo op more important than people? Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's bring in Apurva Jayachandran also, who's joining us live on this broadcast for the latest updates. Apurva, you were on ground when this happened. You reported for us about how even ambulances were stuck. There was a massive traffic snarl, which was another big lapse, that in the heart of Bengaluru, everything essentially came to an absolute standstill because there were no arrangements made whatsoever for this entire victory parade, this bash. No emergency lanes even set up.
Well, definitely, Akshita. In fact, the kind of crowds that had gathered there, not only were there people who were able to go out, but there weren't any people who were able to get inside as well. The situation is that pathetic out there on the grounds as well. Several people, all of them who were, most of them carrying their young ones who had come there, all young RCB fans, teenagers. People who had come there with their friends, all just to catch a glimpse of Virat Kohli or Rajat Patdar, and all of them had just come there just to catch a glimpse of when this, a so-called bus rally will take place, if it will take place, and if there needs to be any ticket that they will have to take in. So it was such a condition, most importantly, wherein neither the officials were briefed about the situation, neither did they know what was happening at which point. At each and every gate at Chinnaswamy Stadium, officials had varying answers. Let me remind you, at one point, at one gate, they said, only those with tickets, they will be allowed inside. And another gate, they said, it's a free entry there, and that is where people can go inside. The number of people, I know there is countless number of people who had just stopped us and asked if there were any free tickets, if there were tickets available, where they need to go, and if they had medical emergency, where they need to approach anyone, because there was absolutely clueless people on the streets just waiting. All RCB fans geared up in their t-shirts with, sloganeering their flags, whatever you say. 18 years, yes, it's been long enough of a wait for them. The cup is finally theirs.
And it's unfortunate, after 18 years, the cup comes home. And what is the headline? That there was poor management, negligence that's led to these images of a stampede breaking out and 11 lives being lost. So celebration, it's no longer a celebration essentially. The whole thing has been overtaken by one tragedy, courtesy no planning by the government, by the administration. Thanks, Apurva. Thanks, Sagai, for joining us with those updates. Just listen in to what Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah said in his press conference. This is from a few hours ago, where he spoke about what had happened, said, I don't want to indulge in any sort of political blame game, but then went on to give a list of defenses, essentially, of why this had happened, including raking up past stampedes about what happened in the Kumbh and whatnot. Listen in to some of the comments that came in from the Karnataka Chief Minister.
It is Cricket Association which arranged the program. See, earlier also, the same police people were doing the security job.
During the matches.
This time also they were doing this security job. See, of course, it should not have been happened. This tragedy should not have been happened. We are with the sufferers, victims. It is Cricket Association which arranged the program. Alva? Namigenu helilla adunna. ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅರಮನೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತದ್ದು ವಿಧಾನಸೌಧದ ಮುಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು, ಅಲ್ಲೇನಾರು ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆದಿದ್ದಾವೆ, ಹಿಂದೆ ನಡೆದಿತ್ತು, ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕುಂಭಮೇಳದಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆದಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಫೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳಕ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ನಾನು ಹೋಗಿದ್ದೀನ? So Stampede has taken place. Nobody has expected so much of crowd will come because the capacity of the stadium is only 35,000 people. Only 35,000 seats are there. But 2 to 3 lakh people have come to participate in the celebration. ಜನ ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಬರಬೇಕು, ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಟಿಕೆಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಬರಬೇಕು, ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಪಾಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಬರಬೇಕು. ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಜನ ಬಂದರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯಪ್ಪ?
So what exactly led to this stampede? We've seen it happen, unfortunately, far too many times in this country, that these kind of incidents take place whenever huge crowds come together. Could this have been better managed? I'd like to bring in former IPS officer, former top cop from Uttar Pradesh, Mr. Vikram Singh, on this broadcast. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. What's happened in Bengaluru is truly heartbreaking. But in hindsight, looking at the images and the details that have come in, Mr. Vikram Singh, do you think that, it was because of a fault of the Bengaluru police that this happened, that this kind of a stampede broke out?
Good evening. My heartfelt condolences to the bereaved families. I would say it is criminal negligence of the worst type, leading to a total collapse of law and order machinery and systemic failure at multiple levels, leading to a cascading effect and multiple tragedies and deaths due to stampede. And the worst part of the dimension is passing the buck from it is the sporting body that should have done this. And the capacity was 35,000, 3 lakhs turned up. Do you think for a moment that the police can absolve themselves, or any administration worth its name can absolve or wash their hands of the case? Because it was not a flash mob. It corrected and it was anticipated. And the intelligence, Bengaluru claims to be the IT capital of the country, and Bengaluru police are one of the more professional police forces in the country. They have the drone technology, they have the air unit also. They could jolly well gauge every single person converging on the stadium. And to say that there was no CCTV network, there was no drone technology, we had no intelligence, it is, come on, this is absolutely unacceptable and unconvincing. The fact of the matter is they were totally unprepared. Every district in the country has what is known as the internal security scheme or a contingency plan that is rehearsed every month to cater to such emergencies. Obviously, you are not prepared. Obviously, you have not done your homework well. The internal security scheme is such that repetition, internalization till becomes a habit and a reflex action, so that you don't have to think. Whatever you have to do becomes a habit and a reflex action. Nothing like this. It was almost
It baffles me, sir, that to this day we're still seeing these kind of incidents of stampedes. We still haven't figured out how to control crowds. The most basic ABCs of crowd control wasn't followed clearly in this case in Bengaluru. But I just want to focus on the statements that have come in and that haven't come in so far. We told you about what the RCBs had to say, but what's also been particularly disappointing is that there hasn't been a word of, a message of condolence of what's happened, to talk about the stampede. None of that from Virat Kohli. 6 hours since that stampede, Virat Kohli yet to speak out. The other RCB players, for that matter, yet to speak out. Not a single statement on social media. They were part of the Chinnaswamy Stadium event. And even at that platform, when they spoke, there wasn't even a one-line mention saying, our heart goes out to the families of those who've lost their lives. You could argue that, sure, maybe they didn't know about what had happened at that point. But now, it's 10 p.m. Do they still not know what's happened? What explains the fact that there hasn't even been a statement that's been put out on social media by the likes of Kohli and the other RCB players? I'll bring in Nikhil Naz for more. He's joining us live from Bengaluru. You were there, Nikhil, of course, to cover the victory bash. It turned quite into something else in the last few hours. The RCB statement also has been rather disappointing, Nikhil. And what do you make of the fact that there's been not even a word of condemnation or a message of condolence that's come in from Virat Kohli?
Akshita, just to put things into perspective, Virat has been maintaining, a distance from social media. He hasn't really been putting out a lot of, statements out on social media, and there are different reasons for that. Something that we dwelled upon some time ago. It happened with him putting out a post that the BCCI didn't like, and ever since that, other than his sponsorship commitments, he rarely puts out a tweet. But that doesn't mean that he shouldn't be putting out a tweet on this occasion. He's more often than not refrained from putting out and speaking on other matters outside of cricket, as recently. You had Operation Sindoor. At that time, you had many people asking for cricketers, why are they maintaining their silence? Or whenever there have been issues of national importance, quite often this question comes up that why don't our cricketers speak, whether it is Virat Kohli or MS Dhoni, but they've maintained a radio silence overall, no matter what the situation. They usually only use social media for cricketing purposes. But having said that, I think this occasion does call in for some sort of a statement to come out from Virat Kohli, because it happened at a cricketing event. It happened on an occasion where fans that absolutely love him, adore him, that back him, pictures that we saw, and something that I experienced personally. And when something like that does happen, you would expect a statement out of him. But I think it's information is still filtering in for the players. I think once he has full knowledge of what may have happened, I think you possibly will see a statement by him, if not tonight, by tomorrow morning. If it is not, if that's not the case, it does not come out by tomorrow, then I'd myself be very disappointed. But I think you are going to see some sort of a statement to come out from Virat Kohli. What I'm also picking up is that because at that time they didn't know exactly what had happened, because the information was sketchy and things were happening on the fly. So RCB had a very long ceremony that they had planned. It was expected to go on for about a couple of hours, but they really cut it short and put it down to about 15 to 20 odd minutes and wrapped it up very quickly and left the stadium, as I said, because probably they were still coming to grips with what they were being told and what really had happened. But hopefully by tomorrow, as I mentioned, you should see a more concrete statement come out from Virat Kohli and maybe a few other players of repute as well.
Can I also just put out two pictures, one of the Stampede and the other of Virat Kohli at that event in Chinnaswamy? It's just bad optics. Maybe the team didn't know. I'm sure Virat Kohli didn't know perhaps the details of the Stampede at that point. But it's terrible optics, to say the least, which is why there's a lot of focus right now on what Virat Kohli will say. The RCB has always spoken about, fans like family and whatnot. So when they put out a statement essentially just expressing their condolence, Nikhil, the question that's asked is, why was an event like the one at Chinnaswamy Stadium allowed to happen then? If the players don't know what's happened, and I'm sure perhaps they weren't really given the details of the Stampede or that 11 lives were lost, surely the management knew, the event organizers knew what was happening right outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium. Who does, the honors fall on in this case of that event at the Chinnaswamy Stadium? Who allowed it to happen? Because look at those images. Stampede outside and Virat Kohli blowing kisses inside.
Akshita, as I said, I'm not sure that Virat Kohli at that moment knew exactly what had happened, because we were there outside the stadium. In fact, by the time the bus was coming in, I did see a few people unconscious who were being taken out of the stadium by the security personnel. So I don't think it really filtered down to Virat Kohli. As you know, a lot of these players are kept in a cocoon at that moment, and they're only briefed about what the event is going to be like. So I'm not sure that they knew exactly what had happened. But I think they were informed, and this is what I'm picking up, they were informed that instead of a 2-hour ceremony, you're going to have a 20-minute ceremony because of a few untoward incidents that may have happened. So I think those details were sketchy at that time while he was at the ground. But having said that, I'll repeat, I think now is the time for him to, really assess, find out exactly what might have happened. And a message from him will go a long way in soothing. I don't know whether you can really soothe the pain of what really happened, but in a way send a message out that this team cares. It cares about the fans, just as they mentioned, and fans turning out in large number. As for who needs to take the onus, I think it'll have to be a collective responsibility, that of the franchise themselves, that of the Karnataka Cricket Association, and that of the local authorities too. It's not that open bus parades haven't happened before. I remember Kolkata Knight Riders did that too when they had won the IPL, but I think there was enough time for them to plan, and it did not happen immediately, as far as I remember. I think the turnaround time here on this occasion was just a few hours. I think they had a buffer day on that occasion, and they managed to do it in a much better manner. And the communication going out to the fans was very clear, how to obtain the passes, how to get to the stadium. And I think even the capacity of Eden Gardens is much more than that, so everyone could be accommodated. Those things really didn't happen here. Maybe it's a lesson now for the franchise, for the administrators here, how to manage. And as I point out, the big difference is, many people will say that how is it that the same security apparatus that looks after an IPL game at the same stadium where fans turn up in a large number, how is it that that goes without any major incident? Why did you have an incident here? Because, as I again repeat, there is lack of communication from the franchise. They put it on social media that such and such time we'll be celebrating, we'll have an open bus parade, and there is no clarity as to how many people can come in on a regular match day. If there are 30,000 people that can be accommodated in the stadium, those many tickets are sold, and about those many people only turn up. On this occasion, nobody knew how to get in. Maybe it was first come first. Or were there passes? Were there tickets? Where to buy? So everyone just landed up, and the crowd was 10 times, 20 times the capacity of the stadium, and that's why it resulted in what it has.
It was multi-pronged, essentially. There wasn't just one factor very clearly that led to the stampede. You pointed out lack of communication, the crowd swelling up much more than what was anticipated, and the fact that we saw this felicitation ceremony happen just hours after a midnight celebration on the streets of Bengaluru. But thank you very much, Nikhil, for joining us. Fans, of course, at this point are questioning RCB players, the RCB, the franchise itself, seeking answers on why there's been no message that's come out really. RCB's put out one statement, but there are many asking what stopped Virat Kohli 5 hours on from issuing a statement on social media. Nikhil tells us expect one by tomorrow latest. By perhaps tomorrow morning, you could expect a detailed statement from Virat Kohli. We'll see if that happens. But like I said, it's bad optics. And just for that one reason alone, perhaps Virat Kohli didn't know about the stampede when it had happened, or for that matter, when he was at the Chinnaswamy Stadium, which is where those pictures are from. But now, looking at these bad optics of how you've seen celebrating at the Chinnaswamy Stadium after a stampede, you would expect a statement to be released. But I also want to talk about what led to this stampede breaking out. And I'll bring in once again Mr. Vikram Singh on this broadcast. What really occurs to me in the course of what's happened in Bengaluru is that we saw a similar event taking place just about a year ago, sir, in Mumbai, after the T20 World Cup, when you had huge crowds that are gathered on the streets of Mumbai, and not a single such mishap, incident, tragedy, nothing. What went so dramatically, drastically wrong here?
Comparison should be between comparisons. Mumbai operation was akin to a masterpiece and a flawless operation, a picture of professionalism. Here, it was nothing short of an unmitigated disaster, lack of coordination, misleading announcement from the first come, first served. They created more confusion than solved the rumor mongering. And to say that did not expect the crowds, then if you did not expect, you are to blame for that. You are paid to anticipate, expect, and prepare a worst case scenario, and you should have a backup for a backup, and also evacuation plans. Did you have the green roads? Did you have an aerial reconnaissance through drones and through the chopper systems that you would be forewarned? Your control room, the smart control that is flaunted all over the country, that everything that happens in Bengaluru, that everything that enters Bengaluru or exits, you are fully aware of that. Well, entire thing has, like the cookie has crumbled. Your all tall claims have been thrown to the wind. And I would say that I had expected a lot better. I'm very disappointed. Poor coordination amongst all the organizers, the police force, no coordination, and the alibi that we were not prepared and the crowd was overwhelming is just not acceptable.
One of the aspects, sir, that came up here is that there was no time for the police to prepare, that you had the IPL final last night, so through the night the cops were up, deployed across Bengaluru, kind of ensuring that there's no mishap that occurs through the night. And then hours later, lakhs of people again on the streets, the cops again deployed to control the situation, that they simply didn't have time to plan. Do you buy that? Do you think that was the problem?
Excuse me, the police are paid for that, whether it's 24 hours of continuous duty or 48 hours or 72 hours. And if you are saying that gives excuse, I'm sorry, you don't deserve the uniform that you are wearing. It's better that you resign or the government dismisses you from service. Because in the Police Act itself, it is laid down that if you give such weak excuses, lame excuses, you can be charged of cowardice and dismissed from service straight away, no questions asked. I do hope you know the law very well. This is totally not acceptable. And this is just the alibi that the police can wash their hands off the case and say that we were not prepared, we were tired and we were overwhelmed. This business of being fatigued and tired is absolutely unacceptable. And what would have happened if you had been in really demanding situation, if you had a gunshot on you? Come on now. These are absolutely unacceptable excuses. And I wish I had expected a lot more of those donning a uniform and being a part of a very illustrious police force.
Do you think also, Mr. Vikram Singh, looking at the string of such stampedes, incidents that keep occurring in the country, in cities, in towns, during massive events, that there is no clear protocol put in place on how to handle crowds, Indian crowds in particular?
The thing comes by surprise. I mean, if you feel that you come by surprise, we have a system that goes to say that everything you prepare for a worst case, there's no guardian angel that will whisper into my ear that this will be the crowd. You have to anticipate, expect, keep your eyes and ears open and cater for a situation. And if you've done your internal security drills, your force is trained, you know what the drill is, crowd management drills are, you know the Balwa drill, absolutely, you will be never caught on the wrong foot. In this case, whenever a force, whenever a police leadership is caught on the wrong foot, rest assured, they are not prepared or equal to the task. They lack training and they lack foresight.
Okay. Mr. Vikram Singh, thank you very much for joining us here on India Today. You've heard there from Mr. Vikram Singh, someone who served as a top police officer in a state and so knows the ins and outs of what went wrong here as far as this stampede goes. So as per what Mr. Vikram Singh says, you have to ask those questions of the Karnataka police as well. At this point, a committee has been set up. So in the next 15 days, we should get answers as to what really led to this kind of a stampede. We can also tell you that you've got bodies like the NHRC that's also taken note of the stampede that's broken out in Bengaluru. And there will be details sought from the Karnataka government on what exactly were the lapses that led to 11 lives being lost. The BJP, and there's a lot of politics that's playing out, the BJP has accused the Siddaramaiah government of negligence of poor crowd management. What was meant to be a day of celebration for the people of Karnataka, for the Congress, with those pictures of Siddaramaiah and DK Shivkumar holding up the IPL trophy with the RCB team, it's now become a glaring indictment of its planning and lack of preparedness.
What was supposed to be a day of jubilation and joy has been marred with tragedy. Over 10 cricket fans lost their lives in a stampede outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru, where thousands had gathered to celebrate the Royal Challengers Bangaluru's IPL triumph. It did not take much time for politics to start. The BJP was quick to target the Congress government. The principal opposition party questioned the poor planning and crowd management at the event. The BJP demanded both compensation for the victims' families and accountability.
An entire nation was celebrating, and entire Karnataka was celebrating RCB's victory. Without any proper preparedness, state government's urgency to organize victory rally is the cause for this big tragedy.
The Congress looked for excuses, with Chief Minister Siddaramaiah claiming no one foresaw a crowd of 2 to 3 lakh coming into the stadium and announced 10 lakh ex gratia for kin of deceased and free treatment for the injured. While the Karnataka Chief Minister ordered a probe into the reason for the stampede, he silently shifted blame onto the Cricketing Association who arranged the program.
It is Cricket Association which arranged the program. See, earlier also, the same police people were doing the security job.
During the matches.
This time also they were doing this security job. See, of course, it should not have been happened.
Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivakumar, who was in the stadium when the stampede broke out, claimed the crowd was uncontrollable and the stampede occurred because of a slab put on an open drain cracked.
We never expected such an incident would have happened. Of course, no one want, no political party or no officials doesn't want. They have done their best in there, but it was uncontrollable crowd. We never expected such a big following. After 18 years, they have been looking at something great, something great.
What should have been a moment of pride, RCB's long-awaited IPL victory after 18 years has now been eclipsed by grief. The incident has raised serious concerns about public safety and administrative preparedness at large-scale public events. Bureau Report, India Today.
So questions being asked of the Karnataka government politically too, and unfortunately every time you see a tragedy like this, immediately you see these political players stepping in, trying to gain some sort of political mileage. Past stampedes, this tragedy, every single case, it's the same. But here on India Today, we will continue putting the focus on the questions that matter. Sure, there are political reactions and a lot of bickering and back and forth that will continue over this. But we over to the victims of the stampede to ask questions of the administration on what led to this incident. A lack of planning, lack of preparedness, mismanagement. It's simply not okay for the administration to just say that, look, it was an uncontrollable crowd. And these are the words that have been used, that this was an uncontrollable crowd. There's no such thing. Lakhs of people were expected to gather. Ask anyone in Bengaluru and they'd have told you that these many people would be there, that there would be a sea of RCB fans who would throng the streets of Bengaluru. The planning was simply off. The fact that this happened in the heart of Bengaluru, imagine at peak hour on a Wednesday evening, these crowds have gathered. And then add to it the fact that the cops had no time to ensure adequate preparations, which meant that crowd control measures were simply not placed on ground. And then, as if to rub salt in everyone's wounds, you had ceremony after ceremony taking place as if nothing had happened at all. You had the felicitation ceremony by the government and then this massive bash at the Chinnaswamy Stadium, none of which was called off, all curtailed. And so you have the government as well as the organizers of the event saying that keeping in mind what happened, we curtailed the event, when ideally it should have been cancelled. And those pictures were rather glaring, very, very telling. That right after the stampede had broken out, and mind you, this had happened outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium. Inside the Chinnaswamy Stadium, you'd think that the victory celebrations would be cancelled. Instead, it continued. So meters away from where 11 people lost their lives and over 40 were injured, loud music, everyone cheering, the RCB team is there, and celebrations going as if nothing ever happened. It was the height of insensitivity. So who exactly is to blame for that kind of an event taking place? Let's tell you in our next report.
The people of Bengaluru waited for 18 years for a royal and raucous party to celebrate an IPL title win. But just as the celebrations were picking up in the city, things went out of control and celebrations soon turned into a stampede. Amid all of this, the RCB cavalcade left the Vidhan Sauda and reached the Chinnaswamy Stadium for greater celebrations, but by now there were reports of deaths taking place. In a classic case of authorities passing the buck, not one person came forward to admit that the city was ill-prepared for a mega celebration. RCB came up with a statement, but much after, the damage was done and lives were lost.
It is Cricket Association which arranged the program. See, earlier also, the same police people were doing the security job.
During the matches.
This time also they were doing this security job. See, of course, it should not have been happened. This tragedy should not have been happened. We are with the sufferers, victims.
हमें इस कार्यक्रम की कोई जानकारी नहीं थी। कल रात को आईपीएल खत्म हुआ, उसके बाद तो ऑफिशियल सभी घर पहुंच रहे थे। मुझे तो जैसे मैं घर पहुंचा, मीडिया के द्वारा ही पता चला इस दुर्घटना के बारे में, और तब मैंने जानकारी लेनी चाहिए, लेकिन कुछ लोग तब शायद स्टेडियम के अंदर ही थे, तो मेरी बात भी, उनको भी जानकारी नहीं थी कि बाहर क्या हुआ है, और उन्होंने मुझे ये आश्वासन दिया कि हम तुरंत तौर पर इसको बंद करवा रहे हैं। लेकिन बहुत दुखद घटना हुई है, और किसने ये आयोजन किया, फैंस ऑन देयर ओन आए इस उसके साथ के उनकी टीम जीती है या बुलाए गए थे, कोई कार्यक्रम रखा गया था, उसके लिए क्या प्रोटोकॉल्स लिए गए, उस बात की बीसीसीआई को कोई जानकारी नहीं।
A magisterial inquiry has been ordered, but still nobody is willing to take responsibility. However, the BCCI is sure to introduce SOPs for teams for future celebrations. An occasion that was meant to celebrate a team's success turned into a mourning for a few families only because of lack of preparation. Sports Bureau, India Today.
And just look at really the pictures that have come in of the stampede, of people being carried out by locals to hospitals, to medical centers, because there was no room even for an ambulance to make it through towards where the stampede had occurred outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium. And just contrast those to the pictures that came in right after, not before, right after the stampede, of celebrations of the players soaking in the glory of their IPL win. It was terrible timing, terrible optics, and terribly insensitive to go ahead with those kind of celebrations. But while we're seeing now statements coming in expressing condolences for the stampede, it's important to continue to put the spotlight on the questions that need to be answered about who is responsible for 11 deaths and over 40 people being injured. These were people who were there to celebrate with the RCB. And now families who've been left without their loved ones, children even, have died in the stampede that's broken out outside the Chinnaswamy Stadium. There was clear lack of communication, there was clear mismanagement, no crowd control, and perhaps also a huge insensitivity shown by the government in handling this. These are questions that we will continue asking here on India Today, questions for which we will seek answers. Over the next 24 hours, we're going to continue getting you all of the updates that come in on the investigation, the inquiry, and the reactions from the state government on how exactly they handled these crowds at the Chinnaswamy Stadium at the Vidhan Sauda and where they were found to be lacking. That's all we have time for in this edition of NewsTrack. Thanks very much for tuning in. Good night.